Text 22, third chapter. Name partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta evacha karmani. Not me, mine. Partha, O son of Pritha. Asti, there is. Kartavyam, prescribed duty. Trishu, in the three. Lokeshu, planetary systems. Kinchana, any. Nothing. Anavaptam, wanted. Avaptavyam, to be gained. Varte, I am. Engage, eva, certainly. Cha, also. Karmani, in prescribed duty. Translation. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor I have any need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. The purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literature as Tamishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram Tam Devatanam Paramam Chadaivatam Patim Patina Paramam Parastat Vidama Devam Bhuvaneshamidhyam Natasya Karyam Karanam Cha Vidyate Natasya Karyam Karanam Cha Vidyate Natat Samashabhidhyakascha Drishyate Parasha Shaktir Vividaiva Drishti Shuyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and He is the greatest of all diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under the control and is under His control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, He is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers, and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than Him, and He is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess a bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between His body and His soul. He is absolute. All His senses are transcendental. Any one of His senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than Him or equal to Him. His potencies are multifarious and His deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Shvetashvara Upanishad 6, 7, 8. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead and is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty, but one who has nothing to achieve within the three planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet Lord Krishna is engaged on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty bound to give protection to the distressed. Although He is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, He does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. Text 23. Yadi yam varteyam jatu karman atindrita navartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. Yadi, if he certainly I do not varteyam, thus engage jatu ever karmani in the performance of prescribed duties, atandritaha with great care, mama my vartma path, anuvartante would follow, manushya all men, partha O son of Pritha, sarvasha in all respects. Translation. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Purport. In order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. Text 24. Utsideyur ime loka nakuryam karma chedaham sankarasya cha kartasyam upahanyami ma praja. Utsideyu would be put into ruin. Ime all this loka worlds not kuryam I perform karma prescribed duties. Chet if aham I sankarasya of unwanted population. Cha and karta creator. Syam would be. Upahanya would destroy. Hima all these praja living entities. Translation. If I did not perform the prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put into ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Purport: Varna Sankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting over the hill as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33, 30-31 affirms, Naitat samachare jatu manasapi anishvara vinashyati acharan maudhyad yata rudrovi abdi jam visham ishvarana vacha satyam tataiva acharitam kvachit tesham yat swavacho yuktam buddhimam sat samacharet. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. We should always consider the position of the Ishwaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishwaras who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean, but if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are so many pseudo devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Leela or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions, nor should one try to occupy their post without qualification. There are so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Text 25. Sakta karman vidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvamsata saktas chikirshur loka sangraham. Sakta, being attached, karmani, in prescribed duties, avidvamsa, the ignorant, yata, as much as kurvanti, they do, bharata, or descendant of Bharata, kuryat, must do, vidvan, the learned, tata, thus asakta, without attachment, shikirshu, desiring to lead, loka sangraham, the people in general. Translation: as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act but without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. A person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities, but one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Text 26. Na buddhi bedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshe sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. Na, not buddhi bedam, disruption of intelligence, janayet, he should cause, ajnanam, of the foolish, karma sanginam, who are attached to fruitive work, joshayet, he should dovetail, sarva, all, karmani, work, vidvan, a learned person, yukta, engage, samacharan, practicing. Translation: so as not to disturb the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. Purport: Vedesha sarve rahameva vedya, that is the end of all Vedic rituals. All rituals, all performances of sacrifices and everything that is put into the Vedas, including direction for material activities are meant for understanding Krishna, who is the ultimate goal of life. But because the conditioned souls do not know anything beyond sense gratification, they study the Vedas to that end. But through fruitive activities and sense gratification regulated by the Vedic rituals, one is gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the results of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. The learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave. Although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities, a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because by direct Krishna consciousness one can have all the results one should otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties. Text 27. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma karta hamviti manyate. Prakriti of material nature, kriyamanani being done, gunai by the modes, karmani activities, sarvasha all kinds of ahankara vimuda, bewildered by false ego. Ahankara vimuda, bewildered by false ego. Atma, the spirit soul. Karta, doer. Aham, I. Iti, thus. Manyate, he thinks. Translation: the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Purport: two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and another in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is a symptom of his nescience. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is a creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Krishna in Krishna consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Rishikesha, or the master of the senses of the material body, for due to his long misuse of the senses and sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. Text 28. तत्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मा विभागयो गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्ता इति मत्वा न सज्जते. Tattvavid, the knower of the absolute truth, to but Mahabaho, O mighty armed one, Gunakarma works under material influence, Vibhavyo differences, Guna senses, Guneshu in sense gratification, Vartante are being engaged, iti thus Matva thinking na never Sajjate becomes attached. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. Purport: the knower of absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that his position should not be in the material creation. He knows his real entity as the part and parcel of the Supreme, who is eternal bliss and knowledge, and he realizes that somehow or other he is entrapped in material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities in the devotion service to Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. He therefore engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and becomes naturally unattached to the activities of the material senses, which are all circumstantial and temporary. He knows that his material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by all kinds of material reactions, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one who knows the absolute truth in three different features, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Tattvavid, for he knows also his own factual position in relationship with the Supreme.